Before he was a meme, before he was a Halloween costume, Uncle Fester was a cartoon you weren't supposed to understand. When Charles Addams first drew a bald man with sunken eyes, standing calmly beside guillotines and explosives, smiling as though death were the family dog. Somehow, he wasn't frightening. He was adorable. That was the Addams Family's secret. They took the symbols of horror and inverted the voltage. Charles Addams himself named Uncle Fester in the 1960s when the Addams Family was adapted for television. In the original New Yorker cartoons, starting in 1938, none of the Addamses had names. They were simply the family. When the TV producers asked Addams to assign them identities, he gave each character a name that sounded like a punchline. Gomez was the romantic but strange. Morticia was a feminized echo of mortis or death. Lurch was a clumsy movement, or to stagger, and Fester, literally meaning to rot, to decay, or to blister. But it wasn't cruelty, it was irony. Fester was meant to sound grotesque but lovable, the kind of name that wears its weirdness proudly. He explodes with energy, laughter, and affection. He's a rot that glows, the walking contradiction that defines the Addams ethos. In a world that worshipped normalcy, they built a home where danger felt domestic. Fester embodied that better than anyone. A human light bulb, a man who electrocutes himself for fun and glows when he's loved. In the 1964 TV series, actor Jackie Coogan gave him the body of a ghoul and the heart of a child. He lived in the basement, had a laboratory-style bed, and treated dynamite like toys. Yet every line dripped with sweetness. He wanted to be useful, to make his family proud. But where did Uncle Fester even come from? When Charles Addams created him for The New Yorker, Fester was not based on a real person, celebrity, or existing character. The character's bald head, dark eyes, and round body were just Addams's idea of a funny opposite of normality, the inverse of the cheerful, wealthy family man shown in popular advertising of the time. Addams even wrote that he wears one coat year-round, a black greatcoat with a giant collar. The baldness was deliberate. Addams said in an interview that, quote, "Bald heads are always funnier because they exaggerate expressions and make characters more visually simple, which was useful in small black and white cartoons." Addams often used broad, round features and small eyes to make his characters look both comic and slightly inhuman, a style inspired by Edward Gorey and German expressionist art, which Addams admired. The sunken eyes and heavy shadows were part of the New Yorker's visual style, where dark humor was expressed through minimalist, high-contrast ink drawings. The famous black greatcoat with an oversized collar comes from Addams's written character notes used by the 1960s TV production. He imagined Fester wearing it year-round, making him look like a Victorian undertaker or monk, someone out of time, which fit the Addams theme perfectly. Every version of Uncle Fester is a different kind of confession. Jackie Coogan's 1960s Fester was a cartoon brought to life, innocent, slapstick, manic. But behind the laughter, there was something quietly tragic. A man desperate to belong, terrified of being left out of the family portrait. When the Addams Family returned in the 1990s, Christopher Lloyd recharged him, literally. In the 1991 film, The Addams Family, Fester's electrical ability is introduced after he's struck by lightning near the end of the movie. For most of the story, he has amnesia and believes he's an imposter named Gordon. The lightning strike restores his memory, and from that point forward, he's shown to generate and survive electricity, like lighting bulbs in his mouth. The film never directly explains how this power works, but later adaptations keep it as one of his defining traits. This Fester was lost, brainwashed, amnesiac. He had forgotten who he was, and the entire story became a resurrection, not of a body, but of identity. A man pieced back together through love and memory. Lloyd's Fester moved like a marionette of grief, jolted, trembling, overwhelmed by touch, a live wire who only calmed down when he was home. It's why that film feels like Halloween magic. It's not about ghosts or ghouls. It's about someone remembering he deserves to exist. In Tim Burton's Wednesday series, Fred Armisen's Fester is the only adult Addams who fully crosses into Wednesday's world. He's not stuck at home like Gomez and Morticia. That makes him a literal link between the old Addams world and the new generation. They brought back his electric powers. He uses electricity to recharge a phone and knock someone out. It's the first major revival of that gag since the 90s films, which shows how essential it's become to the myth of Fester. Unlike earlier versions that leaned into his insanity, Armisen's Fester feels like the Addams family's cool uncle. A crook, sure, but affectionate and protective. He calls Wednesday my favorite niece and helps her with her investigation. It's a big tonal shift. He's the same eccentric, but with a heart right on the surface. He's an echo now, older, softer, but still electric. Across every version, Fester's body is comedy, but it's also testimony. He's proof that the grotesque can glow, that maybe the point was never to fit in, but to shine anyway, even if it hurts. In Charles Addams's original New Yorker cartoons, Uncle Fester was never explicitly criminal, but he was dangerous in a comically harmless way. He existed at the edge of social acceptability, the kind of man who'd cheerfully admit to loving dynamite or electrocution as hobbies. Charles Addams once described him this way: Uncle Fester is incorrigible, and, except for the good nature of the family and the ignorance of the police, would ordinarily be under lock and key. That wasn't just a drawing note. It was a love letter to the misunderstood, coming directly from Addams himself, describing Fester in his private character notes for the 1964 TV show. That was Addams' way of saying, Fester isn't sane by conventional standards, but in the Addams world, he's family. So when later adaptations, especially in the 90s, films leaned into him committing crimes, like blowing things up, scamming people, or digging up graves, they were really exaggerating that core idea that Fester embodies innocent chaos. He does bad things with childlike joy, not malice, because in the Addams moral code, curiosity and mischief are virtues. He's not evil. He's unfiltered. He just doesn't recognize the boundary between life and death, destruction and play. That's what makes him feel criminally insane to the outside world, but perfectly sane inside the Addams house. Fester takes that philosophy to its extreme, sometimes crossing the line from eccentric to outright criminal. But even his crimes feel like play. He doesn't destroy out of hate. He destroys to see what happens next. He's the living spark of chaos that holds the Addams world together. Charles Addams once said that Uncle Fester was the closest he ever came to drawing himself. And when you look at the cartoons, it makes sense. The grinning bachelor in his black coat, living in a crumbling mansion, equal parts menace and warmth. In the New Yorker's 1977 retrospective, friends noted that many of Addams's characters reflected parts of his own personality. Some said Fester came closest. The grin, the chaos, the sense of humor that laughed at the dark instead of hiding from it. When the Addams Family became a TV show in the 1960s, Fester finally got a name. But that was the joke. He gave the name of death to the most alive man in the house. By 1965, a paperback novel expanded his legend. In a chapter called From Here to Perplexity, Fester gets drafted and turns the military upside down when doctors discover he served in the Civil War. Has orange marmalade in his veins, electronic circuitry on his skin, no fingerprints, and is completely weightless. Even in print, he was a parody of logic, a creature too strange to die. If you want a dedicated video uncovering what Uncle Fester really is, not who he is, what he is, let me know. He's not dangerous because he's violent or cruel. He's dangerous because he understands where the rest of the Addams family embody darkness. Fester controls it. He can channel lightning, weaponize chaos, and somehow turn death itself into a joke. And that makes him the most unpredictable of them all. Fester isn't bound by logic, science, or even his own mortality. He laughs in the face of pain. He thrives in the absurd. And he does it all with absolute joy. That's what makes him terrifying. Not because he wants to hurt anyone, but because nothing in the world can hurt him.
Nothing like a good jolt to get this party started.
He's the living proof that the Addams Creed isn't just about loving the macabre. It's about transcending fear entirely. Fester is there to show us that energy isn't good or evil. It's what you do with it. He takes everything monstrous in himself, the loneliness, the pain, the shame, and converts it into warmth. That's why he glows. He's a Frankenstein's monster who forgave himself. Charles Addams drew him as a joke, but maybe jokes are the oldest kind of spell. The Addams family laughs at the things we're supposed to fear, and in doing so, they strip those fears of their power. Death, rejection, difference. They turn them all into punchlines, and somehow into love. That's Uncle Fester's real trick. He's not lighting a bulb. He's lighting the world. Because in a family built on darkness, sometimes a little light comes from the most unexpected of places. Uncle Fester has changed with every generation, from Charles Addams's black-coated bachelor with dynamite to the 1960s TV uncle lighting up light bulbs, to Christopher Lloyd's unhinged version who literally survived lightning. But through all of it, the core idea never changed. He's the family's chaos, the part that laughs at fear and keeps the Addamses alive by refusing to fit in. Fester isn't the weird one in the room. He's just the only one honest about how weird the world already is. Now, I want to hear from you. Who played your favorite version of Uncle Fester? Christopher Lloyd, Jackie Coogan, or the new Wednesday Fester? Or maybe someone else entirely? If you thought Uncle Fester was mad, you should go check out my video on Gomez Addams and why he might be the scariest Addams of all. Thanks for watching.